the sponsorship of the Dagama Group.
Hello, good day, and welcome to Rumbo Minero. My name is Cesar Campos, and today I will be hosting the program instead of Jorge Leon Benavides, who is absent. Thank you for tuning in. We have several important issues to discuss and specifically address with our esteemed guests in attendance. Given the outlook of the trade war unleashed by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, that he has enforced, what he refers to as reciprocal tariffs and elevated tariffs, particularly aimed at his primary rival, the People's Republic of China. How does this situation affect us, and what kind of role are we going to develop in response to it? We are going to talk about this today with economist Alejandro Indacochea of Indacochea Associates, who will give us a very accurate approximation of what is happening. We will also discuss it, by the way, with the international editor of Rumbo Minero magazine, José Gonzáles, who is in Lima, but who, as we all know, is a leading Wall Street analyst, is a prominent Wall Street analyst in New York. Máximo Gallo, who holds the position of General Director for the Mining Formalization Directorate within the Ministry of Energy and Mines, will moreover be in attendance. We are eager to understand the current status of the entire formalization process that has been put forward by the sector he represents. We also have an ASM law pending discussion in Congress. We estimate that it may not be approved, and the objectives that the Minister of Energy and Mines himself, the engineer Jorge Montero, has outlined a strategy for this formalization process. We will elucidate everything with Mr. Máximo Gallo. Gabriela Chicoma brings us the top mining updates for the week. So let's get into the main news. 106 characters.
Thanks, Jorge. Here are the week's top mining headlines. This message contains 82 characters.
The President of the Council of Ministers, Gustavo Adrianzen, has declared the cleaning up of the Comprehensive Mining Training Registry, referred to as REINFO, to eliminate miners who are not active or currently suspended. Remove inactive miners. He also indicated that those without authorization for the use of explosives and those who misuse their registration will be removed from the registry. The Vice President of the Peruvian Institute of Mining Engineers, Juan Carlos Ortiz, informed that the institution is working together with SUNAT in the elaboration of a traceability standard for the trade of metallic minerals. Changes come in explain that this measure will allow differentiating informal miners who seek to formalize from those who operate in unauthorized areas or who use illegal mining for money laundering and the practice of illegal mining used for laundering money and evading taxes. Paul Gomez, General Manager of Goldfields Peru, reported that Cerro Corona, located in Cajamarca, the company's first mine in the world, operates using 100% renewable energy, marking a significant achievement in sustainability initiatives. This achievement was reached through the exclusive use of sustainable sources, such as hydroelectric, solar, photovoltaic, and wind, consolidating the company's commitment to energy sustainability in its operations.
Many thanks to Gabriela Chicoma for the main mining news of the week. As we had anticipated, we are pleased to present in our studios Máximo Gallo, General Director of the General Directorate of Formalization of Mining. From the General Directorate of Mining Formalization of the Ministry of Energy and Mines. Máximo, it is a pleasure to welcome you here.
Thanks, Cesar.
Well, we are in the process of debate in the Congress of the Republic of the famous ASM law. The REINFO is still an uncertainty. The ministry has proposed to initiate a very aggressive process of formalization of 25,000 artisanal and informal miners. We would like to understand what stage we are at right now. Could you please clarify?
At the moment, we are waiting for the regulations. That's fundamental, isn't it? The law is there, but without the regulations, we can't proceed.
The ministry must issue the regulation, which totals 65 characters.
From various ministries, including the presidency, in order to ensure its confirmation. The ongoing process of obtaining this approval is currently underway. It's coming soon, isn't it? And fingers crossed that it'll be achievable in a few weeks. It's approved. As that establishes the guideline, we need to begin our work.
Correct. So we have been made aware that for roughly the last few weeks, and in light of the pre-election environment, which we have mentioned frequently in this show, obstacles appear in 5 regions affecting the continuation of the formalization process. Are you all aware of this issue, and how are you dealing with it?
Indeed, there are numerous obstacles throughout the process. Wouldn't you agree? This is certainly not an easy journey. We have spent 12 years on this endeavor, and the progress has been disappointingly minimal. No? So, presently, our intention is to implement a groundbreaking alteration in the management of the process, don't we? At the ministry level, which will enable us to make progress. We have more or less identified that, as things stand, we will be able to formalize We want to formalize 5,000 miners soon, in about 2 or 3 months. The problem is 5,000 miners. Although it is enough for what we have, it is still not enough for the national reality. Therefore, it is imperative to resolve additional concerns in order to extend our formalization process and include many more, as you previously stated, a quantity of 25,000. That is our goal, 25 or 30,000 by the end of the year. However, in order for that to happen, we require Congress to enact a specific legislation, such as the MAPE law or another law tailored to address the issue. That has to do fundamentally with unblocking a problem with the mining concessions. This is because it serves as the central point. Thus, 95% of miners in the formalization process lack ownership of the mining concession. Therefore, if the holder of the mining concession does not give them, there arises a grave predicament when individuals are unable to formalize a contract to facilitate their work. Hence, the conundrum lies in the two complex situations regarding concessions in this matter. The first one is the extinguished concessions. There are a good number of concessions that do not belong to anyone because their holders have been extinguished. According to the law, it states that if the miner is not, isn't it true? The headline indicates that someone must provide it if there is no one to serve as an owner, the contract cannot be given. However, we currently have around 25,000 miners facing this dilemma. Hence, this situation seems rather absurd, don't you think? Because what we want is for there to be a law that establishes that in those extinguished concessions, the state assumes. Isn't that right? We can give it to the good miners, the ones who are doing well, and we will grant them the concession to continue their work.
In relation to what you are mentioning, Máximo, I can identify 3 significant points. The first is the necessity of transversality that there is. Isn't it true? Initially, through a valid understanding that one possesses to create the agreement, update those that are already extinct, or establish a means of communication and interaction with informal and artisanal mining operators in different ways to bring them up to date.
Correct.
The second thing is to also empower the Ministry of Energy and Mines in a central role, because we know that the regional governments unfortunately do not contribute, do not collaborate, and hinder the whole formalization process. I strongly agree with your remark that the third point, as you rightfully pointed out, holds immense significance in considering the regulation. We also have to conduct a census to determine the actual profit we need from informal activities and artisanal mining in order to define a clear margin.
Absolutely. Yes. Wouldn't you agree? In order to make public policies, one has to have information. Without information, it is very difficult to make public policy because one goes there groping, but one does not always succeed. And one of the key training issues is how many miners we have in Peru. We do not know. Well, isn't it true? There's no official mining count. We've made an estimate, right? Implying that there are at the very least 250,000 miners. We're not referring to workers in mines, but rather to individuals who own a mine. That would be a total of 250,000 people. Taking into account all mining workers, the figure surpasses 2.5 million individuals. Due to the large number of miners, with nearly 10 people in each mine, the total population reaches around 2.5 million. To put it in perspective, there are approximately 250,000 miners, of which only 86,000 have registered to formalize. That means that we have 140,000 that they don't care about formalizing.
This serves as yet another important point, which I would emphasize as the fourth. The absence of a formalization inclination is an unrecognized aspect in Peru. Let's not solely focus our discussion on mining. In every economic endeavor, certain individuals feel comfortable working within the informal sector.
That's right. And then, as the governing body, it is our central obligation to establish rewards that motivate these individuals to abide by the law. Ensuring compliance is our utmost duty as representatives of the state. Is it not true? Thus, they made an attempt to implement this formalization process for mining. However, regrettably, it did not yield satisfactory results, correct? Consequently, we are now required to establish a new law regarding the MAPE, which is the one you mentioned. Isn't it true that MAPE law is what you tell us? What is the plan for initiating a new procedure to involve the group of 150,000 miners over there, as well as those who are not formalizing at present, which will be about 30,000 more or less, and to enter again to legality? That is the great challenge we have. The ministry has already identified 16 significant matters that must be included in this new legislation regarding ASM. In order to operate, they require functionality.
20 characters.
Concessions, right? That's one, fundamental. The other is traceability of gold. There are several, okay? And what we are doing is, in this whole month of April, we are going to hold. In order to address the 16 problems, we will engage in talks with mining unions, specifically focusing on those representing small-scale miners. Ensuring the preservation of work tables will be our priority. Secondly, I must mention the National Mining and Petroleum Society, as they have a significant message to convey. Furthermore, it is vital to establish connections with academia, universities, and research centers. Therefore, our approach will involve addressing each topic individually, actively discussing and aiming to find common ground. Our focus will be on 16 key areas that we believe hold utmost importance in this matter. Thus, once we have collected and comprehended all the information, including our areas of agreement and disagreement, we will present it all to the esteemed members of Congress of the Republic for your information, gentlemen. This is the proposal we made. It includes 29 characters. We may reach consensus on certain aspects but diverge on others. The responsibility now lies with you, members of Congress, to reach a conclusion. And we will deliver this to you in order to have, I hope, towards the end, around June, we need a MAPI law that allows us to progress and not just stay with those 5,000 miners, but to advance to 30,000 miners that we want by the end of the year, right?
That's right. Regarding traceability, there's an aspect that comes up almost automatically, which is the matter of processing units. Of the mineral, whether it is gold, since I have the impression that at times there is a misfocus on what the legitimate processing units are, that act in a very close coordination with artisanal miners, with informal miners, and others that are obviously not known. And others that evidently, right, are known to have even helped in migrating gold production to Bolivia, which have been, well, channeled to other markets. So how does the ministry intend to effectively focus, identify, and separate the legitimate processors from the illegitimate ones?
You have clearly stated it, haven't you? The processing plants, if I'm not mistaken, are crucial in this entire process. The small-scale miner usually relies on those who are most acquainted with their craft and actively seeks their assistance. Consequently, the miner has no choice but to approach a suitable plant for processing the ore. Therefore, they possess the most intimate understanding of the miners. We're currently involved in working with the plants, aren't we engaged? To create, isn't it true, improvements in the process and advancements in the gold commercialization chain? No, they are vital. We are aware that a substantial amount of plants are performing quite well. However, we also recognize that there is a considerable number of plants that are not functioning properly, being both informal and illegal.
But sometimes they all
Certainly,
get mixed
it is truly
up.
absurd. The lumping together of illegal and informal mining is utterly unacceptable. This state of affairs is unequivocally unfair and misguided. We have a clear understanding of this matter and we're collaborating with the well-performing plants. Our initial focus will be on closely monitoring the plants that are not performing optimally in order to resolve this issue. We are currently addressing this issue. Earlier today, I had a meeting with the folks from ANPLABEN, the Plant Association. We have come to an agreement to work on the MAPI law in the upcoming week. They are going to help us a bit with these 16 topics, and we are also going to work with them. And also with the National Mining and Oil Association, and also with the guilds, a new regulation for the commercialization of gold. A new regulation for the commercialization of gold. It is something fundamental, right? With this new regulation for the commercialization of gold, we are going to achieve the traceability that this country needs. We are going to be able to identify from the moment the mineral leaves the mine until it reaches export. We are going to be point by point. Each one of the operators in the gold market will have to make their transactions in a system that will be directly in the cloud with his cell phone. The miner captures a picture of the load he is pulling out from his mine, isn't that right? And he will say, I am pulling it out. I am putting it in this truck with its license plate. A truck is going to be geo-referenced with GPS, isn't that right? We will be able to track its movement to a plant.
Your route?
Let's see if the plant they are going to is a legal plant or an illegal one. That's where we'll find out. We will have the whole system in place. The task is to pinpoint the location of the illegal act and to descend when outlined.
Maximo, I'm curious about your perspective on the MAPI law debate. There are consistently issues that concern us, don't you think? I'm questioning how the Commission can consider it acceptable. The respective commission in the Congress to participate with people representing built on reality, complemented by the craft industries. Aha, it has transcended that there are some not so informal, but almost bordering on the illegal ones that have been trying to influence, especially in this, and especially in this so-called hereditary REINFO. I do not know what the ministry thinks.
No, we are indeed in agreement. This topic regarding hereditary reinforcements has been interpreted poorly and negatively. Wouldn't you agree? It's quite absurd. Small-scale mining is a traditional family-operated business.
Yes.
Isn't it true? I mean, miner father, miner son, miner brother.
Yes.
What happens if the father dies? The family will stay. Is it not possible for them to mine? It's absurd. Thus, the idea is that when the father dies, the son will carry on the family business. Isn't that so?
It's all right.
That's the crux
but
of the matter.
you are able to handle a new contract and you can also manage a new one too.
If the father is going through the formalization process and has a reinforcement mechanism. Isn't it true? The father has to adhere to the complete process in order to achieve formality. If he doesn't make it, he leaves and bye-bye. Isn't that right? The father is in the process and dies. The son is still in the process. If the son succeeds, perfect. He is formal and continues. If he doesn't make it, he leaves. Thus, it is not passed down permanently. It is inherited to the formalization process.
Maximo, you are aware of the dysfunctional family dynamics that prevail, particularly in rural areas. Anytime a breadwinner passes away unexpectedly, offspring emerge from various corners.
Fine, but
So no, but consider that
It can
situation.
happen.
For that reason, from certain perspectives, there needs to be a procedure,
No, there will
even
be.
if it's minor, a record
it
to
is crucial to
facilitate
maintain
that.
formality and ensure its inclusion within public records.
That's what I was saying.
Certainly, it will not be. It will
It
not
must
be.
not be
No, it is not
automatic and should
automatic.
simply-
It must be present in any case. There needs to be a declaration of heir. Everything must be clear. Wouldn't you agree? Absolutely.
Perfect. With that kind of formality, we will stay. Many thanks to Máximo Gallo, the Director of the General Directorate of Mining Formalization. We will discuss this matter again in the future as provided by the Ministry of
Whenever you
Energy and
want,
Mines.
sir, it's a pleasure.
Delving into this, very kind already. Yes, very kind.
A pleasure.
Let's pause for rest and rejuvenation. As is customary, we step into our international segment, America Mining, accompanied by José Gonzáles, who is the editor of the international section of our top publication, Mining Direction. José, welcome as always to the program.
Pleased to make your acquaintance, Cesar.
It has been with you for sure. A pleasure to develop with so much anticipation and almost from the very week in November when Mr. Donald Trump was elected as president. Mr. Donald Trump was elected president. And break time 0.5s, indeed. The anticipation of a disorder, break time 0.5s in the world that we did not imagine the degree to which we were going to reach, especially in this preceding week. Break time 0.5s were already announcements such as, for example, the imposition of 140% tariffs on China. Break time 0.5s, the market, the fall of the stock exchanges and alterations above all. Bags and changes, particularly regarding our uncertainty about how we will allocate certain export products. What is the current outlook for you of what all this upheaval has left us with?
As we mentioned last week, given Cesar's announcements, we were not anticipating any reaction. Initially, the proposal's size took us by surprise. It is interesting to note that even President Trump is involved in this matter. Is raising rates to 185 by at least 10%, and this affects Peru too. Peru experiences a trade deficit on its side, contributing to negative balance.
Right on.
This, along with the free trade agreement established with the United States, reminds us that the president has called upon special powers. A, to impose tariffs that correspond to the legislative branch through executive decrees and 60 countries in what they call reciprocal tariffs that go above that 10% and that go from 48% to the OS, 15% to Venezuela. Now, what the financial markets feared the most was that a tariff war would break out. The perfect situation would be for the President of the United States, along with those who have imposed tariffs and the rest of the world, to initiate a negotiation process and consent to the American imposition and on the basis of their tariffs. And the worst case scenario is what is happening this week with China. This week, in which China, in response to the actions of the United States, China retaliates by imposing a tariff of 34. The United States, in turn, sets a tariff amounting to 34 plus 20, which totals 54. The United States adds all the tariffs, they go to 104. China responds with 84. The issue of China is something you know well, having traveled there on various occasions and being acquainted with its philosophy. From the Chinese government, the thing is that the Chinese government, the relationship is not only commercial, it is about harmony. It's a matter of not being embarrassed. It's a topic that if they allow the United States to impose its will, what is happening with the market that China is aspiring to, more so in a situation where Chinese trade remains important but is declining with the United States. And this war looks like it's not going to end. What is the problem? The financial markets are entering a process of high volatility, almost convulsion. In 3 sessions, the market has already shown that the Nasdaq is in what is called a bear market, in a selling market. The S&P is rapidly approaching, the Dow Jones is approaching. It's a situation similar to that of COVID from the year 20. The oncoming 2008 mortgage crisis is relatively imminent, and unlike the 1929 correction or the preceding major crash, it's expected to show only a marginal difference in severity. The Great Depression, and there is a consensus among the investment banks, speculate on the possibility of a worldwide stagflation scenario. That is to say, recession with inflation is between 40 and 60%.
For sure, the United States will definitely face inflation in the upcoming months ahead.
And it is going to slow down. Yes, Amazon is announcing the cancellation of import orders for goods from China. And on the other hand, the discussion in Peru, how does this 10% affect us? First, industrial products may not tolerate it. An added cost to demand. That means when the American consumer facing pressure from various sources is forced to purchase blueberries from Peru, will they be willing to pay an additional 10%? The producers have the ability to absorb that expense, reduce their margins. The global slowdown, how does it affect us? And in terms of metals and minerals, The gold, which arrived on April 2nd, has seen a decline of 5.7% after showing a 20% increase earlier this year. The length of the text is approximately 166 characters, while the new gold is approximately 220 characters. Copper is down 18.2%, but it had previously increased by 25% this year, now at 32%. While the rates could directly affect us by that 10%, we must also add the 25% that is coming for copper. I have already told the President that rates for pharmaceuticals are going to rise. Wood and my key minerals. Indeed, we may encounter an expense, a surcharge of 35% on copper shipments bound for the United States. The 3% does not have any impact on us, but it certainly does affect the established tariff regulations pertaining to China. And the quotations and the investment projects that could potentially be influenced by this volatility, postponed.
Truly impressive. Nevertheless, from the viewpoint of the United States, they could assert that they have positive news due to a study's findings. Commissioned by the Army of the North to the University of Law, where they have found an alloy nanostructure between lithium, tantalum, and copper that could be used in defense schemes. In other words, at the same time, the United States is currently engaged in a trade war and appears to be considering strategies for their military defense. Could you provide additional details to help us understand the situation better?
The United States is a vast country with a population of around 330 million people and a GDP that is close to $30 trillion, which continues to expand. In their normal dynamics, despite this volatility, and to distract ourselves a bit from the volatility of the markets under President Trump, that is important news, Cesar, because opens a new window to the demand for copper, which has been created by the American Army Research Institute in collaboration with these universities. They are working on nanostructures in terms of metallurgy, which is a topic that we want to cover more in a mining direction. All mining ends up in metallurgy. It's the use of the minerals for their practical uses and what they are. We are in search of new types of alloys that have similarities to nickel alloys, that are temperature resistant, that are strong, and that don't deform. In this nanostructure, the process involves precipitating copper, layering it with tantalum, and stabilizing it using lithium, creating an alloy of significant strength.
And they use it for the aeronautical industry, don't they?
It is very strong and can resist mechanical and thermal stress, tolerating temperatures of up to 800 degrees Celsius. 8 times the temperature at which water boils, it does not deform. And it is going to be used for weapons, electrical components, and structural materials. What is it going to be used for? Weapons, electrical components, material structures, and it will be of great use for hypersonic vehicles.
Sure.
And for new turbines and turbine engines. This signifies the future of aviation and military technology. And they start in these structures. But what happens? That copper, despite this volatility of what they are generating with the rates, the metal's future is guaranteed because of its nobility, ensuring its value lasts.
The important thing is that we always derive to the mining elements that serve for the war industry, combat related. They are meant for health services. All structures, whether it is modern architectural designs or traditional ones, heavily rely on the utilization of mineral elements and resources. We must always remember it as a vital aspect of humanity's destiny. Many thanks, Jose, for your unwavering support and presence with us. Jose Gonzáles, the editor on the international page of our magazine Rumbo Minero, all that we've discussed here and other issues that obviously Jose mentions, as well as everything related to the information of the mining sector, you can find it here in this magazine, which you could also access for free. You might be curious about how it's done through the internet. www.rumbominero.pe. A pause and I return. In our second interview, as we had announced, we have with us the outstanding economist, Dr. Alejandro Indacochea from Indacochea. Dear associates, we gather here to talk about the trade war that has been initiated by Donald Trump, the President of the United States. As you are, Alejandro, always welcome to Rumbo Minero.
I'm glad to be back on Rumbo Minero after a long time away.
Give us an overview first at this point with all the measures, the marches, more marches than counter marches, because many people were expecting that suddenly, in an attempt to strengthen his negotiating position, Trump set these tariffs. However, this week has seen some changes. Very serious, especially in its commercial relationship with the Republic of China. Explain to our viewers a bit about what stage we are in.
Look, Trump has collapsed. The trade system that existed across the world for the last century. This was in the year 29 when there was a tariff war starting on the 30th The U.S. took the lead for an economy without protectionism, focusing on openness and integration. Today, after practically a century, Trump suggests reverting to the bygone era with this tariff war, asserting that a trade war ultimately results in no victors. Everyone loses. Here, there will not be those who win less or who lose less, those who lose less. But in the long run, we are all going to be affected.
This week, Diego Macera, the head of the Central Reserve Bank, released a publication in the Commerce Daily, a narrative of what you are indicating, isn't it, about the United States. In all its protectionist stages, even in the negotiation of the free trade agreement with the United States, today our representative in the United States, Eduardo Febrero, held the responsibility of Mincetur's operations. I remember discussing the challenges of convincing both Democrats and Republicans. To put it differently, there are protectionists who band together, irrespective of their political party.
Yet nowadays, this signifies the opposite end at a global scale. I was deriving a formula, the trade deficit and total imports, 45 characters. In my opinion, this signifies that I would assess individuals based on the presence or absence of vowels in their surnames, which is irrational and lacks reason.
Now, it has been widely observed by the majority of analysts, Alejandro. It appears that Peru is not considered among the most affected countries or certain nations in Latin America, since this limit has only been applied to it, of 10%. However, there is concern. The authorities have expressed their intention to initiate talks with the United States, specifically concerning our agricultural products, which require attention. Please relay this message to the audience.
Look, the world has changed.
The impact.
Globalization and trade openness are coming to an end. To trade with everyone, everyone with everyone, no, it is going to be integrated for me in blocks. Paradoxically, to finish this part, we could find in the 21st century a United States integrated with Russia and a European Union with China. Now, what about us? Peru, it amounts to 0.12% of international commerce. I believe our group is among the least impacted, and we may even have the opportunity to make gains in certain
Can you
areas.
provide an illustration? An instance could be regarding
concerning this text. In agriculture, we export avocados and berries. Yes, mango. Well, it goes to a segment of higher purchasing power. And that 10% will not significantly affect us. Moreover, some American importers have already stated that we should share the tariff, 5-5. Textiles, we are going to a segment of higher purchasing power, mainly alpaca fabrics. But here there is going to be a detail. With the tariffs that have been placed on Chinese products or products in general from Asia, we are about to experience an invasion of textiles here, aren't we? Therefore, we need to bolster an Indacochea.
Damping price plus.
Demonstrating damping can be extremely challenging, which is why we require an institution similar to the central bank, such as Indacochea, with highly skilled professional teams. And relaunched.
An Indacochea that impressively depends on the executive power, and now it shows. Well, we will talk about the issue of medications later on, but you are absolutely right. Indacochea should be an autonomous, independent regulatory body that does not have any political influence or interests.
Exactly. He has been caught up by interests.
There are some revolving doors there.
Extremely huge, and that reduces impact.
Sure.
What we must have as an organization like Indacochea.
Let's go to the impacts in the mining sector. In any event, the commercial conflict has resulted in a downturn. Although we wouldn't describe it as dramatic, it holds significance in the copper market. This was an element we had taken into account prior to the trade war and might potentially have influenced it. There's a strong stability, really impressive. Right now, only 4% of the copper goes to the United States from Peru, so it doesn't really affect us much. What do you think about the overall situation?
Wow, great question in Rumbo Minero. A recessionary wave is coming. We are all going to lose. No, China is experiencing a 5% growth rate now. It no longer grows at 9 or 10%. When we had the mining boom that we should have taken advantage of, the mining bonanza is gone. Currently, the price of copper is experiencing a decline. The only thing that remains is gold, and oil is also falling, along with commodities, although the United States is not our most important market, as you are mentioning. However, we should consider that this impending global recession is approaching us. Mining will have a drop in prices, and we will have a drop in income. The bonanza is over. Now, we should let our Congress friends and the political class know that we really need to adjust the budget and deficit now. We need to make adjustments to Peru because we cannot sustain losing $3 million every single day. Due to the end of the era of plump bovines, it is imperative that we rationalize our situation. And we have to have a strategy of what you are talking about here now. We think that there will be a trade war, a recession is coming, and everything will remain the same. That's not the case.
In this scheme that you have put forward, which I find so fascinating, that we are going to see an alliance between Russia and the United States, the European Union, and the People's Republic of China. I wonder how you are evaluating if Russia becomes involved in the conflict over Ukraine's rare earth lands, it will have taken a clear stance on the issue, which is crucial for resolution. This revised text contains approximately 219 characters. At least a proposal is because there is also the aspiration of the United States to control the rare earths with critical minerals. Obviously, they're in Ukraine.
Hey, there are questions here, because if you look at the fee list, the only one missing is Russia. Russia is not there. Russia has, and Ukraine does have 15%. Is China the country with the largest reserves of rare earths? And China continues to move forward with its policy. The problem with China has been that internal consumption usually absorbs national production. And in the majority of countries, it accounts for around 60 to 70% of production. China has not been able to improve its domestic consumption. Therefore, instead of consuming 60, it only consumes around 25 to 30 on the inside, giving it a total of approximately 152 characters. The real estate crisis came, which has been very big. They have lost almost as much as the Peruvian GDP, and they have not been able to reactivate that internal economy. And being our main, let's say, mineral export market, there is going to be a drop without a doubt. There will undoubtedly be a drop, right? And we need to prepare for those times.
These recessionary times that are looming, how do you see the insistence, at least this week too? The Director of Pro-Inversion has aligned with Minister José Salardi, who oversees economy and finance, declaring that we will grow by 4% this year, no matter what happens.
Success. But from then on,
but are there possibilities? I mean, in our current situation?
I hope so. I see it as quite distant, because we need to adjust to reality. The clash with reality is going to be strong. Here, as if nothing were happening, it's not about giving bad news, but rather that we need to get ahead with strategy. What should be our next course of action?
The strategy of the MEF is these deregulation measures that it is announcing. How do you see it?
It is necessary to expand upon and make a decision regarding Peru, a company. You have to make a decision about the issue with Petro regarding the lots. Because this takes away our international image, and it is an auction that has been handed over. And you have to make a clear decision regarding the budget for Congress.
The comptroller also noted the auction, it should be said,
Look, there's an auction that the comptroller's office, there's a starting issue. It would be for another topic in a meeting regarding the rules of the game for the lots. But at a level, while the two companies that emerged victorious, the first and second, are indeed linked to real estate firms.
Of course,
sector has
there is
no
just one, the mighty,
path.
which has been more commonly associated with them.
But whether you like it or not, those were the rules of the game. So today we can't say it's no longer valid, and we are going to hand over to Petrobras. And we will give it to Peru. It is my hope that Minister Salardi will arrive at a clear conclusion regarding this issue, outline the future of Peru, optimize public spending, and we are here to provide our assistance. The best is success because he is a serious professional.
And the doubt that it causes us in Peru, the failures in the flexi-cooking unit, that is to say, the treatment and processing of oil. Heavy, isn't it? The situation is absolutely terrible, given that we had the leader at the forefront. To engineer Mr. Narvaez, this text has 29 characters that indicated to us if we are in a learning and error process about flexi-cooking, which I must emphasize again. At the Talara Refinery's renewal unit, processing heavy oil is the most significant concern.
The Talara Refinery cost us 4 chunques. The investment in chunque, which is the integration axis of Latin America, of South America with Asia, which is giving us this platform, $1,000. That's 1,550 million. Chunque was 4 times that, costing 6,500 million. Here we have to make a decision. We cannot continue with Mr. Narvaez's apprenticeship. What happened to that forensic audit of the refinery? A refinery that initially cost 1,300 has now reached 6,500.
So it was announced that it was going to be passed in these days
They
to
are
the...
hetero announcements, and the president with her board of patriots. The board of patriots is made up of those of us who care. Of 43% of the children under 5 years of age who have anemia. Of 15 million who eat only once a day. And not of a bureaucracy, an enterprise that has not yielded results, that costs us 4 million every day. With this?
Alejandro, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much. We are going to call on you continuously, given that, as we have announced here in the program since the election of Donald Trump, is going to be a recurring theme. Each one of the determinations. For some, it's misguided. For others, I don't know where they're looking. A defense of production. We need to either define or cut down the trade deficit of the United States, for goodness sake, with protectionist actions, when you have rightly said that the world was already heading in a different direction. decisions of the World Trade Organization, which have been violated in the
breakdown
most
of the global
absurd
trade
way.
system will have limited impact if the entire American academic community, which encompasses influential institutions like Harvard and top universities, responds. Consequently, their responses alone will not yield substantial outcomes. It's going to be a recession, a price increase with inflation. The Fed is not going to change the interest rate and proof of that. There are 5 planes arriving to bring iPhones due to the price increase, right?
How exciting. Previously, we had the pleasure of having Alejandro Indacochea, the president of Indacochea Asociados, join us. After the break, we will explore this topic further and provide additional insights to our audience. Break time, 0.8. Yep. At the end of the program, it is crucial to point out the participation of Máximo Gallo, the General Director of the General Directorate of Mining Formalization at the Ministry of Energy and Mines, who has specifically pointed out the objective, the aspiration of this important sector of the executive power for the formalization of at least 5,000 artisanal or informal miners who are currently struggling to enter the mining sector in a formal manner. In order to legally engage in mining, one must attain the ability to enter the activity. Hey there, miner. Let's keep our fingers crossed for the prompt release of the regulations. And of course, we believe, as we have always commented here with Jorge Leon Benavides, that the ASM law will surely still sleep the sleep of the just, and that the REINFO will probably be extended this year, 2025, without finding a solution. These are the collateral aspects, in any case, collateral aspects of this strong discussion and pressure that the public sectors are putting on themselves to achieve once and for all the longed-for formalization in the mining sector. Also very interesting is our dialogue with economist Alejandro Indacochea about the world that is coming to us with the trade war unleashed by the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Gonzáles is also our editor for international news. Has mentioned the possibility that we might be living through a phase of stagflation. In other words, inflation with recession. At least the United States is going to have it. The conditions imposed on us in this competition, while many analysts indicate that it will not have an impact on us, are noteworthy. Nevertheless, our deficit in trade balance with the United States remains a pressing concern. Even so, there are some products, especially agricultural exports, which hopefully will not suffer these impacts. That's everything for today on the Rumbo Minero show. Keep watching for the Peru Construye segment.